my child! Let me stay with my child!
A strong specimen, despite the tears.
Adjust the ledger accordingly and prepare the bill of sale for the remainder.
Starting at £50, do I hear 60?
£60!
All men are created equal.
You are 5 years old, and your mother is being taken away from you. One moment, her hand is in yours, warm, rough from years of hard work, and as familiar as your own heartbeat. The next, a stranger's grip replaces hers, and she is moving in the opposite direction through a crowd that doesn't part for her screams. You don't understand the word auction. You don't understand property, bill of sale, or any of the legal terms being spoken around you in calm, business-like voices. You understand only one thing. She is gone, and the world you have just entered has no interest in your grief. You are placed on a wooden platform. It is too high, and your legs dangle over the edge. Men you have never seen walk around below you, inspecting you the way people examine livestock at a county fair, because that is exactly what this is. Your teeth are checked. Your limbs are handled and turned. A hand presses your small back straight without asking permission. Voices rise and fall around you, calling out numbers you cannot understand. Then one number holds. A hammer falls, and your future is decided with a point in a new direction. Records from the largest slave markets in New Orleans and Richmond document this scene repeating thousands of times. Families were separated without warning, and children were among those most frequently taken away because slaveholders considered them easier to relocate and, in their words, easier to train. Easier to train meant easier to break before they were old enough to fully understand what was being taken from them. You are handed to a stranger. You do not cry for long. You quickly learn that crying too loudly attracts attention, and in this world, attention rarely arrives as comfort. By the time you are 6 years old, your body already belongs to someone else's economy. You are awake before sunrise. Not because someone gently wakes you, but because the sounds of movement and the fear of what follows idleness jolt you awake before the sun has even risen. Your hands are still raw from yesterday. The cotton bolls do not become easier with familiarity. Every reach into a dry husk tears open the skin between your fingers once again, and by mid-morning, your hands are bleeding in the same places they bled the day before. There is no pause for this. There is no acknowledgement of it. The overseer moves through the rows with a quota in his mind and a leather whip in his hand, and that quota does not contain a single line that says, "except for the children." There is no exception for children. You carry buckets of water that are nearly too heavy for your arms to manage. You pull weeds on your knees beneath the Mississippi sun, its heat pressing against your skin like a physical weight. You are expected to keep pace with adults twice your size. And when you cannot, when your legs simply will not move as fast as the quota demands, the response is not patience. It is not understanding. You hear leather crack through the air and strike your small body. Then silence, because you learn very quickly that reacting to pain often brings more of it. The children around you, the ones who have been here longer, absorb the whip with a stillness that should never exist in a child's body. You learn to do the same. You learn to bury the pain somewhere deep inside, where it cannot be seen on your face. Even as a child, you could be whipped for picking cotton too slowly, for dropping a load, for appearing tired, or simply for failing to keep up with an adult's pace. The abuse of enslaved children was not much different from that inflicted on adults, and punishments were often carried out in public, in full view of other children, because slaveholders understood that fear spreads faster when it has witnesses. The public whipping of a child was not a failure of the system. It was the system functioning exactly as intended. Then, one morning, someone decides you're small enough, quiet enough, and manageable enough to be useful near the water. You do not know where you are being taken. The Carolina lowlands smell different from the fields, thick, green, and ancient. A rope is tied around your ankle, not tight enough to prevent movement, but tight enough to prevent escape. You are placed on the bank of a creek while men with rifles wait in the tree line. You are the bait, the alligator bait. In the Carolina and Georgia lowlands, alligators are drawn to heat and movement. A small child standing at the water's edge provides both. That is the calculation being made, not about your fear and not about your life, but about utility and opportunity. Everybody knows it, but nobody stops it. They used you to catch an alligator. You survived that morning and walked back with the rope's mark still pressed into your ankle. No one asks how you are. That question does not exist in this world. You file it away with everything else your body has learned to carry without showing. You are 8 years old when your master's mistress looks you over and decides you are pretty enough to serve at the table and quiet enough not to disturb her guests. She gives you a white pinafore and tells you to smile when company is present. You learn quickly, at a speed only children living under constant threat can manage, that smiling keeps the whip away. So you become the best smile in that house. Wide. Practice. You scrub floors until your knees throb. You carry dishes too heavy for your small hands. You stand for hours in doorways, waiting to be needed. Every mistake brings punishment far harsher than it deserves. A broken cup is never just a broken cup. It is a reason. A spilled drink is never an accident. It is an excuse. You learn to move through rooms like fragile glass. You learn to sense needs before they are spoken. You develop a hypervigilance that no young nervous system was built to endure. Historical accounts from formerly enslaved people describe the constant surveillance inside plantation houses, where children were expected to perform with an unnatural precision no child could truly possess. Failure brought immediate physical punishment, but the house held a darkness deeper than the whip. At 11, your owner, a respected physician, an educated man, a gentleman in the eyes of society, began. He whispered vile things in your ear in the hallways. He followed you into corners. He approached you in rooms where his wife sat just feet away and said things no grown man should ever say to an 11-year-old girl. He told you that you were his property and that his wife had no legal right to refuse what he wanted from you. He was correct. The law stood entirely with him. What happened to you took place in houses across the South. In rooms history has long avoided fully confronting. There was no legal word for it. Under the law, rape required a victim to be recognized as a person. Enslaved children were not recognized as people. That meant the crime, by definition, did not exist. And so it continued generation after generation inside grand houses with white columns, magnolia trees, and their owners' names etched on courthouse plaques. You grow up understanding, not in your mind, but in your body, that you are never safe. Not in the fields, not in the house, not near the water, not even in sleep, when you are least able to resist what the darkness might bring. You learn to sleep with one part of yourself always listening. You stay half awake even when exhausted, never fully rested, your body forever running on fear. At 13, you begin learning other things in secret. You watch the white children being taught inside the main house and memorize letter shapes through the windows. You trace them in the dirt when no one is watching. You listen to words read aloud nearby and match the sounds to the shapes you have collected. In several southern states, it was illegal to teach an enslaved person to read or write. Slaveholders understood with chilling clarity that literacy was the first step toward imagining a world beyond this one, and that imagining was the first step toward resistance. Every letter you recognize is a small act of rebellion. Every word you quietly decode is territory they cannot take back. Your mind becomes the one piece of land you truly own. Every structure built to stop you from becoming a full human being failed. The auction block, the feeding trough, the rope at the waterline, the locked rooms, the whip, and the deliberate theft of your name, your mother, your brother, your grief, and your right to learn. All of it was designed with one purpose: to reach you before you fully became a person and convince you deep in your bones that you were not one. But you were always a person, every single second. Even as children, you passed your real names to one another in the dark. You grew up. You wrote books that are still read today. You fought in a war that destroyed the institution built to consume you. Some of you survived, raised children, grew old, and told the truth to anyone willing to listen.